Right, okay guys, I think we're a few minutes over. We've kind of a few of the stragglers come in, a bit of a smaller group tonight than usual, but thanks everybody for coming down. As always, we absolutely love these events. You know, people on the live stream, and I thought, I'm speaking tonight, but I can't be the only one that gets away with it, so I'm doing it as well. But you know, thanks for all coming down. What we're doing here with the conscious community workshops is like really important to me. You know, for a lot of the people haven't really been coming down to what we've been doing for a while. You know, we've been running these events for about 3 years now in various different guises. So it's so important to me having people in here with these connections, and again we've got, well, a number of health, I think half the room tonight are health practitioners, so it's pretty cool to bring everybody together and share and learn, and I'm going to share some information tonight, and Mavis is going to speak in a couple of weeks. We need to lock that date in tonight. So yeah, tonight I'm going to be talking about reducing your toxic load. Before I start, what I'll do is I'll kind of give a little bit of an introduction to me, because I guess a lot of you know me but don't really necessarily know how I've ended up working in the wellness space. I'm not a health practitioner. I'm not a nutritionist or a chiro or a naturopath or anything like that. I'm a guy who loves health. Our ethos of our company, Energize Mind Body, has always been a simple approach to healthy lifestyle, and we've always seen ourselves as being like a hub of a wheel, to be a trusted place to bring people together, to point them to the amazing people that we have around us who are health practitioners. You know, and I think that the problem for me in society generally is that everybody's trying to get their piece of the pie, and unfortunately with books and videos and programs and, you know, this plan and that plan, it's all marketing, and health is really, really simple. And what myself and my business partner Martin for the last couple of years have really been trying to do is just keep this community moving of people who are really passionate about learning and helping each other, and people when they're sick and they don't really know who to turn to have a group of people that they can trust to say, hey, who do you know that can help me with this, or share stories to between each other know what works. So that's what I'm so passionate about, and the reason why, how I ended up here. I don't have a big health story. A lot of the people who speak here have had these amazing health stories that make my journey sound really, really uninteresting. But effectively, I'm a sportsman. I was fortunate enough to represent the English national lacrosse side for 8 years. Fortunate enough in that time to win 2 European gold medals. So I've, was lucky enough to beat the Germans and the Dutch in finals of the Europeans, which is good fun, especially beating the Germans. And that was a tight game as well. And the thing for me is I always thought I was super healthy. You know, I was probably as fit as an AFL player. You know, I've never had an ounce of fat on me. I was a bit bigger a year or so ago before I did my back in. But what I always struggled with all through my life was being tired. Now, when I was at school, I'd literally fall asleep in classes. I'd sit there, I'd fall asleep, I'd wake up. It was like homework was coming back out, and I missed a lot of time. Fortunately, I was pretty smart, and I managed to not really do too badly. I did still quite well, but I fell asleep a lot, and I put that down to being an adolescent. And then when I finished school and I started my apprenticeship, I used to be stood and I'd be watching guys. I was a telecoms engineer, and they always called it as a telecoms engineer. It was poles and holes. You went down holes and you went up poles. Now, if I was stood watching down a manhole and the guy I was working with was down there, I'd literally be like this, stood there, and I couldn't keep my eyes awake. And I'd drive a van and I'd drive all over the place, and while I was driving, have you ever been sat there, you know, when you're studying and you're reading a book and your eyes are like, you know, and you've literally got to put the book down and have a power nap. I'd be like that half the day, every day. It wasn't safe driving my van. And then when I went out of that and I was working in an office, it was exactly the same. So every day I'd fall asleep at my desk, and then I started having to sleep every single day. I'd have my lunch and then I'd sleep to get me through the day. And it was like I put it down then. I went out too much. 17, 18, 19, 20, you're out, you're enjoying yourself. And I thought it was that. And then I started playing lacrosse, and then I put it down to playing lacrosse. And this carried on right up until we moved into Australia, where my lifestyle changed, and I realised that I shouldn't still be this tired, because I'm definitely not a teenager. I don't really go out anymore. And you know, I'm not playing all the lacrosse I am. So like, why is this? And I met somebody who was celiac. And all of a sudden, you know, found out that gluten intolerance and wheat intolerance actually isn't a thing. I always thought, you know, it was people who needed to toughen up a little bit, you know. and so I was like, no, celiac's really a thing. I grow horns and I die, and you know, it's this horrible thing. And I was like, okay, so I cut down the wheat. I didn't really have too much sugar. You know, I slowly cut out other things, dairy, etc. But then one day, Martin introduced me to digestive health and alkalinity. And it was like super greens, probiotics, digestive enzymes, bang, lights were switched on. And this was a whole new world for me. And I say one day Martin introduced me. He tried to get me to look at this for 6 months. You know, you should check this out. Why don't you try this? No, I know what I'm doing. I know my health. And you know, my ego stopped me looking at something that was good for me. But eventually when I did, obviously you go evangelical, don't you? And it's like, I don't want to tell the world about this stuff. You know, and around that kind of time, Martin had a mental breakdown. It's a powerful part of our story, and for those of you who've heard it, I won't go into it. But he spent a little bit of time in a hospital in the Marion Centre. You know, and that's why we're really passionate about mental health. We talk about it a lot, and while I don't know, talking about it. But when he needed to come out of there, he had nowhere else to go. And I just said, look, come and live with me for a bit. And we set up our company, Energize Mind Body, to try and help people who were killing themselves with food at my workplace just to be healthy. We ran a 12-week challenge. We did fitness training and mindset training and nutrition plans and all this great stuff. And that 12 weeks turned into 24 weeks, into 6 months, into 18 months, and that group still runs itself as a fitness group. But we just loved the seminars, and this is what we've been doing for the last 3 years. So it all started from really trying to help Martin to have something to do when he had his mental breakdown, and trying to do something for the people in my office. And you know, a couple of years later, this is kind of like my job. You know, and whilst you know I'm not a practitioner. And I guess you'll all know that I make my money by selling products. But the reason I do that is because it funds me to be able to talk. You know, and I think being able to be stood here and bring these groups together is you know, in some instances, you know, maybe not quite as technical, but can be just as important for people's wellness to get in there and really give them a place to stand. And what we're going to talk about tonight in reducing your toxic load is the thing I'm most passionate about. This talk is by an absolutely amazing woman called Therese Kerr. Does anyone know Therese Kerr? Okay, have you ever heard of Miranda Kerr? Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone will have seen her. She's in every airport. You can't miss her. She's all over the posters. Well, Therese Kerr is Miranda Kerr's mum. Now, she has an amazing company called Divine. I'll give her the plug early doors. This is their presentation. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. This presentation is fantastic. Now, Therese Kerr, just to give you a quick thing on her, she actually, after having 2 kids, ended up that she got really sick, cancer of the spleen, terrible endometriosis, wasn't able to have any more kids, and went on a journey to find out why, and met an amazing man called Dr. Mark Cohen, who studies out of Melbourne. And a lot of this information you'll hear tonight is university study information that comes from them. And basically what she learned was that during her period of being able to beautify herself in her 20s, when she had the money to do so, the excessive amounts of chemicals that her body came in contact with, it was the belief were the direct contributant to the toxic load in her body, which led to the problems that she had. And that's why all of this comes from. And I heard Therese talk a couple of years ago and immediately started to talk about this. I've been giving virtually this speak for the last couple of years, and have just been fortunate enough to work with her that I've actually got it now. So it's pretty amazing. I haven't got my clicker, so I'm having to do this the old school way. Did you ever used to have a VCR when you had the buttons? Did you ever have one of those VCRs? Feel a bit like that. Okay, so So, pretty simple, our world used to be organic, yeah? Organic didn't used to be a word. We only needed the word organic once we actually got to the point that there was that many toxins in our everyday things that we needed to label what wasn't killing us. Now, to me, we should have food and products and then toxic crap that's killing us. You know, and it shouldn't be that way that we have to label what's good for us, and be that way that there are labels that are actually something and call itself organic when it actually has one organic ingredient. So we even have different levels of organic. You know, and that's a problem to me, because what it actually does is it clouds the ability of people to make a decision on what's good for them. You know, and really we're not being protected by the people that should be looking out for us. Now, there we go. So there's a lot of information in this. I'm going to kind of skip through it. This is really a 90-minute presentation, and we've got 45 left, and I'm not known for being punctual. So we'll breathe. If anyone's seen me speak before, I'm never on time. So basically, you can see here, chemical production rose 400-fold during 1913-2001. So 100,000 chemicals are registered in Australia, and most of them have never been tested for chemical toxicity. They can be put in our diet, into our products, and nobody's ever checked whether they're okay for us. 17 pesticides in Australia are known to be carcinogen, 42 are suspected. And there's a whole list of things that you can hardly pronounce that are really, really bad for us. And these are in our world every single day. A big thing that's a problem for us is food preservatives and food additives. They impact our health. Now, back in the day, we used to use natural things, your salts, vinegars, honey, sugar, all these kind of fermenting and dehydrating to preserve our food. But as with everything, what's happened as we've gone along is that industrialisation and mass-scale production has meant we found cheaper and cheaper ways. And what we came up with was preservatives. And it says here, you know, basically food is no longer food. All of these flavours and sugars and gases are put into our food to enhance the flavour, to make them more addictive to children, to make them last longer. But we look and say, at what cost? You know, 30% of children now have eczema. This is a good point, a good day for me to be talking, because can you see sort of here I've got this redness. My brother's over at the moment, and we're off the back of my wife's mum being over, which has meant for the last 6 weeks I've kind of drunk a bit more, been a bit lax with my diet, and what's coming up is what I was told is seborrheic dermatitis. I was told as a teenager my skin is allergic to the oils that it secretes. That's nonsense. I start to eat stuff and I know this is a check that's in the mail. And it is. I had a coffee yesterday with milk. It came through. I ordered a long black. They brought me a long Mac. I went, don't worry about it. I drank it and I knew. A day later, you look and go, why is that? Autism, bit of a taboo subject at the moment, but realistically, these things are growing. Look at these stats. In 1990, approximately 1 in 10,000 children had autism. 2012, 1 in 100 had autism. 2015, 1 in 63, and in 2032 it's estimated 1 in 2 children will have autism. Now, people say, and the people will try and say, oh, it's because identification methods are getting better. Now, you know, at one point we'd have called it like a weird kid, right? But autistic kids are autistic kids. They're not like everybody else. So we look and go. A lot of the pharma companies will put a lot of this media hype saying that you don't get autism. It's not contracting autism. It's not getting worse. You know, detection methods are better, because while they keep us fighting against each other, no one's addressing the issue, and that's a scary stat. You know, and I think this is, for me, it's important to question why it is these things are happening.
What is autism? Hyperactive kids? Or?
No, autism's a developmental disorder. So, like kids with autism, generally, they're not very emotional. They're very literal. They're very sensitive to loud noises and overexposure to things that stimulate their senses. I mean, it's a terrible affliction. You know, I mean, that's a whole talk in itself, really. I'll let someone else go into that talk. That's maybe got a kid with autism. I think they're the best people to talk about it. But needless to say, it's a growing problem. You know, autoimmune disease. This is actually an enormous field. Dr. Sandra Cabot says in her book about autism that autoimmune disease. And the body who's investigating autoimmune think that eventually virtually all conditions that we know will be classed as autoimmune. every year, every week, every month, they're finding new ones that they can relate to autoimmune. And as it says here, they are everything. And you've got like your eczemas and psoriasis, arthritis, asthma. All these things are autoimmune. It's more common than cancer and heart disease. And there's all over 100 types of autoimmune disease that are currently impact the health of Australians. And again, this is growing every day. These are some common ones. I forgot I've got this slide in here. These are really common autoimmune. Now, if you look through this list, most people will have one. Everyone will know someone that's got a couple of these. You know, and I've seen firsthand with the work that I do and the stuff that I sell, you can clean up this stuff very, very simply. It isn't very difficult, and people live with this stuff for years and years. You know, especially looking at things like fibromyalgia, your psoriasis and things like that. I actually know a lady who saw Therese Turk at Talking Secrets in the Garden in Sydney last year. On the back of it went all organic with all of her personal care produce. The fibromyalgia was that bad that they just kept upping her doses. Do you know what I'm saying? Fibromyalgia. She had a terrible thyroid condition. Sorry, it's not fibromyalgia. Thyroid. And effectively, the doctor said her doses will only ever increase of her medication. On a fully organic diet and fully organic personal care products, within 6 months she'd come off one of the tablets, half her other dose, and the doctors are reviewing her monthly to come off. And you think, why don't doctors know this? Why did it take a woman to see someone talk at a health expo before people make that change? And this is just to say, you know, the cancer rates, you know, Australia tops the list for cancer. And again, we've got to be asking that why when we're in one of the most educated, economically well-off countries in the world, and yet we're topping the cancer list. And when you look at this generally, you look and go, the richer the country, the cancer rates are higher.
Who's number two?
You know what, that's one of the worst slides. New Zealand, North America, Western Europe, you know, basically all your Western countries, all your powers. These are some other massive and really, really shocking stats. Dementia is the second leading cause of death in Australia. I think that is shocking because people don't talk about Alzheimer's. When they talk about Alzheimer's, people go, it's just old age. And 100% we know that it isn't. You know, another environmental condition. Obviously then mental illnesses, when you look at that, 1 in 5 Australians have experienced depression. 11.5 have had a mental disorder, and 8.5 have two or more disorders. And this is shocking. Every day at least 6 Australians die from suicide. Another 30 attempted to take their own life. And the problem with this, a lot of the time, you don't see it coming. A lot of the time with the people who commit suicide, it's that one day you never see it coming. I had a friend of mine recently, you'd have thought he was the happiest guy in the world. You know, they all went to bed one night, woke up in the morning and he'd hung himself a fishing line.
What is the reason?
I guess it's a bigger subject than this to talk about, but
mentally
starts from the gut, reverberates around.
It is a balance of in the body.
Everything. You know, I think people, but again, from what I know, people are more susceptible to something. It might be mental illness, it might be your skin conditions, it might be cancer, heart disease, diabetes. Whatever your weakness is in your body, that's where it presents itself. But I think as Mavis will say, she's quite passionate about digestive health. You know, when you clean up what's going on in your gut first and clean up the toxins that are in your body, you just give your body a fighting chance from the start. So, but this again, it's a whole other talk in itself. This is another scary thing that a lot of us aren't thinking about, is that there's not 1 litre of ocean in the world that doesn't contain microscopic plastic beads. You know, over the last sort of 5-10 years, there's been the enormous explosion of all these scrubs. You know, and all these scrubs that people are using on the face, all of them tiny little microbeads in it. They advertise it. You know, and yet these are going into the oceans, they're going into the waterways, they're polluting the oceans, they're polluting our fish. And then who eat the fish? We do. You know, and if you buy into, well, we should buy into the fact that all like these plastics are leaching out BPAs. You know, plastics that are BPA free are leaching out one of their cousins. You know, they always replace it with something that's never quite, you know, it's still never quite right. And we're filling our oceans with plastic, both these tiny beads and plastic bottles. You know, if you look at the, what's it called, the Mid-Atlantic waste pile or whatever it is, it's like the size of a continent, just swirling around in the ocean, plastic bottles. It's scary.
Wow.
You know, we'll work into why this is so scary in a minute. This is a big thing that I talk about. I'm probably one of the few guys who talks a lot about makeup. I own a kit of makeup that cost me over $2,000 that you know, the people I work with use to help people to see that natural makeup doesn't have to kill you. But brief history of cosmetics. Since World War II, basically the corporations have found ways to hide all of these chemicals within all of our products. You know, and all of this testing, they find things they can use them for and create a product around it. There's over 13,000 chemicals in cosmetics, and only 10% have ever been tested for safety, and they're regulated by a self-governing body called the Cosmetics Ingredients Review. So this is an industry that's full of stuff that's killing us. You know, 20% of all makeup contains formaldehyde. We know that formaldehyde is cancer-causing, and yet they're regulating themselves, which is a bit like allowing the drug cartels to decide whether or not they're allowed to sell us drugs, right? A scary thing that when we know these products aren't being tested. These are some of the chemicals of classes of chemicals that are in our everyday products. Okay, neurotoxins, like who gets foggy thinking? You know, you get your brain isn't quite working, you don't quite feel awake, you know, your decision making isn't too good. That's all around foggy thinking. Again, there's many causes for this, but a big one's attributed to neurotoxins, as is looking at things like your Alzheimer's, depression, and low libido. I know I'm clean because I'm okay with that one. That's a joke. God, if I wouldn't have got a laugh then, I'd have been like, oh, yeah. But these are things that we don't think about. You know, things like low libido. As men get older, again, you say, oh, it's your age. Again, it isn't your age. Again, you look at some of these societies out that are hidden from Western civilization, and the old guys are as virile as the young guys. You know, the old guys are getting married again at like 70 and things like that. It's ridiculous. So first neurotoxins, next obesogens. Now what obesogens do is obesogens make a normal cell turn into a fat cell. Now the problem with the obesogens is that once they start, they become very, very good at storing fat. What happens with the toxins when our bodies have an overload of toxins in them and your body can't actually clear them out? The only thing that your body has to do to combat that is to take those toxins, wrap them in water-soluble fat and put them where? As far away from your vital organs as possible, which is why guys get the visceral fat on the belly, women it's usually ass, thighs, backs of the arms. And a lot of women, especially when they're thinking about, say, like cellulite, you know, it's something that women talk about a lot, and they've got all these rollers and all this kind of stuff. But the orange peel effect is literally that the watery fat sat under a stretchy skin on top. You know, and you think this is why I'm so sort of passionate about detoxing or reducing your toxic load to allow your body to do what it does. Because for most people, you could literally pee and poo away all of that fat by reducing the crap that we put in and onto our bodies. But again, the problem with fat cells, they get really, really good at storing fat. And fat, a lot heavier, a lot more difficult to get rid of. And obviously there's the links to diabetes and heart disease. Carcinogens, this is the big one. Obviously, you know, this is the thing that most people are scared of these days. Now, a lot of people will say, or all of the scientists say, that it isn't about the volume of the carcinogens you get, but more just it being the one at the right time, landing in the right place, within the right environment for it to turn nasty. You know, if you read the book, The China Study, it's spoken about in there to talk about it like grass, like our body can quite happily clean the garden, can quite happily mow the lawn of cancer, but in an environment where the body's too busy doing other things, the weeds take over the garden, they spread into the cracks, and before you know it, you've got a problem on your hands. You know, and keeping the carcinogens out is the way to go. But obviously, they're cancers: your ovarian cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer. And this is where it comes down with a lot of the plastics is your endocrine disrupting chemicals. Now the endocrine system, I guess who could give us a little thing of what the endocrine system does? Can you give us a brief synopsis?
No, it balances. It works on a negative feedback system. So when the blood levels of any of the what do you call it, hormones goes down, it sends a message to the brain to go to the organ to produce more, and when it goes too high, it sends another message to the brain. So it's a slow system, but it's a balancing system.
Yeah, so like basically the signalling system of your body to keep everything in balance. You know, when we look at a lot of people will argue the alkaline diet to say that your body maintains homeostasis, but if your signalling system isn't working and everything gets too slowly and it's all mixed up, how can your body know what to do properly? You know,
so what the chemicals do, they actually attach to the receptor sites on the cells, and then that blocks the messages from going from one cell to another.
Yeah, exactly. So we look and go, we've got problems with fertility. There's another slide about that in a moment. I can never say this, hypospadias, which is where the male genitalia will actually, like the tip of the penis will be in the wrong place. This is actually an increasingly common problem. And obviously your breast and ovarian cancers and Hashimoto thyroid. You know, thyroid is massive, such a big problem. You know, and when you look, you see so many women that have thyroid surgery. You know, and it's scary. And I've been in places where we've had this conversation, and you say, "Well, do you wear perfume?" Yeah. Where do you spray your perfume? You know, your skin absorbs everything, and we'll come to perfumes in a minute. But it's so important. Two things I always will say to anybody: the quickest things, stop wearing antiperspirant deodorant, and please stop wearing perfume or aftershave. And spraying it on your clothes isn't much better because it still just goes straight up into the limbic system. The babies. You know, this is the one that normally gets a lot of people. The babies, developmental toxins. Babies do not have any detoxification abilities. So when we're putting all this stuff in, you're putting the sorboline on, you're putting the baby powder on, you're using the balms and the lotions and the baby wash, it's all full of toxins. And your baby cannot get rid of them. You know, women during pregnancy, one of the quickest ways for a woman to detox is to get pregnant because you dump a lot of that into the baby. You know, so we've got to be so careful. It's like, again, you look and go, who knows what it is that causes your autisms, your ADHDs, I couldn't answer that. But when you look and go, there's so many things that would damage a baby from the minute they're conceived to the time they have their injections. It's no wonder that something goes wrong along the way, right? You know, so looking at the immune system is a big problem. You know, immunotoxins, again, immunity, we could go on about that all day, and reproductive toxins, infertility is on the rise. This slide is basically just saying that no one's checking on the products. You think someone's looking out for them, you think someone's checking and making sure they're okay, they're not. When Therese put Divine out, she said that they've released 70 products and none of them had ever been checked by anybody. No one ever asked, no one ever checked. The other people that checked were the organic certification body, but that isn't the supermarkets and Chemist Warehouse and all these people that we're killing ourselves with. Okay, this is probably the big one for me. Parfum, and the word fragrance. The word fragrance can contain up to 3,000 chemicals that do not have to be listed. This is according to the Breast Cancer Fund, and they've got a brilliant app called Think Dirty. I'd say for anyone, download Think Dirty. There's another app called Chemical Maze. Like they're a must-have on your phone. Almost all products on the market do contain the word fragrance, and that's everything from your personal care, your cleaning products, your air fresheners. It's everywhere. And you look and go, well, we'll talk about phthalates in a minute, but when you start to think about how widespread these chemicals are, again, you can see why there's such a problem. And research shown conclusively that environmental chemicals play a significant role in all of these diseases. Chemical toxicity causes oxidative stress, and as we know, oxidative stress causes illness, namely cancer. You know, avoiding oxidative stress is probably the number one thing we can do for our body. slows down the aging process, keep us well, get those antioxidants in. That's where all the all the good stuff is. So endocrine-related disorders. 70% of women have some hormone-related disorder. Again, is it any wonder with all the chemicals, with the anti-pregnancy pill and contraceptive pill? We've got all of these young girls that are crazy, and then women approaching menopause that have another bout of really serious mental problems. Hormones are just all over the place for their whole lives, and women especially suffer with these chemicals. 1 in 7 women of childbearing age are considered fertile. 1 in 6 couples currently experiencing fertility challenges. Everybody knows someone that's struggling to get pregnant. I know loads. And it's almost like commonplace now, and you think like, we're only born to do one thing, that's reproduce. It's scary. Early onset puberty of males is 8 to 10. That's ridiculous.
Many guys.
Yeah.
Homosexual.
Yeah. Well,
many lesbians.
And you look at like girls. You've got girls that are hitting puberty like 8. It's, early onset puberty used to be like 14, 15. This just goes to a couple of products that I've actually picked on so far. I mean, I know this is a bit of a content-heavy talk, this guy, so I apologise if you're a bit like, oh my god, but like I say, it's a big talk. Antiperspirant deodorant, basically, aluminium, BHT, these things are in your products. They're cancer-causing, they're choking you, and for women, breast cancer usually develops basically under the armpit, and in a lot of breast cancers, they actually do find, when they biopsy them, that they do find remnants of antiperspirant deodorants in them.
What's BHT, Dave? BHT, what's it stand for?
Do you know what? I don't actually know what the full thing is for it. Probably that weirder word that they don't even use the actual word for it. But that's in, it says here, concealer, eyeliner, foundation, lipstick, moisturiser, perfume, sunscreen, and that is like respiratory and immunotoxicity. So again, it's in your deodorants and stuff, you're spraying it. There was actually a case of a kid that died a couple of years ago when he'd walked into the bathroom and his dad had sprayed a load of, or the kid was in the shower and his dad had come in and sprayed a load of deodorant and then gone out, and the intensification of the steam and the thing actually caused the kid to die. It's crazy. And I had a mate when I was young. I fell asleep at this place, and they were using solvents, and I was just like, "What are you doing?" This mate of mine passed out, literally passed out onto a toilet. You should have seen on his head. These guys were doing it all the time, and you think,
What are they using?
Like solvents, like anything they could put their hands on, they had gas in it.
Sniffing it.
Yeah, through a sock, through anything, and you think, it's crazy.
Oh, it's
Toothpaste. Fluoride. Fluoride does not in any way help your teeth. There's 2 different types of fluoride, sodium fluoride and calcium fluoride. Calcium fluoride helps your teeth, you find that in nature. Sodium fluoride is the waste product of the creation of chemical fertilizer and aluminium. It's a noxious gas that's too toxic to put in the air, it's too toxic to put in the oceans, it's too toxic to bury it. So the only way they can actually get rid of it is by selling it back to us and slowly trickling it through our bodies. It's a neurotoxin, it's carcinogenic. The World Health Organization have said this. I always talk about, when it comes to this subject, lions and gorillas. Would we agree they both need their teeth? Where do they get the fluoride?
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that. Triclosan. Triclosan is the stuff that's in antibacterial hand wash. So basically, triclosan has been banned in America was banned in America, but only in antibacterial hand wash, because it was proven in a study that antibacterial hand wash doesn't work. It's cancer causing. It's in all the hospitals. This list just goes on and on. I won't go on these too much. Octocrylene. Octocrylene is in your sun creams. Octocrylene is something that breaks up UV rays as it hits your skin. It is in all your sun creams. What does it say here? Absorbs into the skin, not assessed for safety in cosmetics by the panel. Persistent and bioaccumulative in wildlife, which means it builds up over time, you don't get rid of it. Produces damaging reactive oxygen species upon exposure to sunlight, free radicals, etc. So what does that mean it's causing? Oxidative stress on the skin when exposed to sunlight. And what's it supposed to do? Stop skin cancer. Why is this in all the sun creams? It is, it's in all of them. The only way you get away from it is buying one that's a zinc oxide, which I use one called Mugu. Factor 15, spreads on dead thin, that's great.
I was going to say that model Megan Gale was promoting one, and I think they had banned it or something. I forgot who was selling, but she was the celebrity for it.
Yeah, I don't know. The best one I've found is Mugu. It's not waterproof. The factor 30 you can't tell. The factor 15 you can't tell this on your skin. The factor 30 you're a little bit white, but you know at least you're not putting that nasty stuff on you. In fact, this got on my chin is because I had to use a normal sun cream about a week or so ago, and it just blocked all my pores.
I didn't use.
Yeah, there you go. Unfortunately, I'm a shade jumper, so if I don't get in the sun, I just turn to ash and die. And I'm not a phoenix, so that's it. I'm done. Phthalates. This is what's in all your perfumes. I might be on time here. This is what's in all your perfumes. This is in all of them. Okay. As you can see here, this is the big one. Linked to birth defects, damage to male reproductive system, suspected endocrine, liver, kidney, reproductive, developmental, immuno, neurotoxicity, wildlife and environmental toxicity. Phthalates are in everything. Just go get the fragrance out of your life, and one of the worst things that you can have in your cupboard is nail varnish. So get away from the nail varnish. They do a natural one here. And dimethicone, that's a silicone polymer. That's what goes in like those shampoos that make your hair all nice and glossy. It's a plastic, and as you can see, it does all manner of bad things for you. I mean, you could go on all day. Formaldehyde, that gives you cancer. It's in all your makeups. Parabens there, preservatives, they give you cancer. Everything gives you cancer. But as you go through this list, I won't go into that yet. It just goes to show, like, there's a lot of stuff there, but it's rife, and they're in everything. I actually won't show that because it kind of just covers what I've been saying. Oh, in fact, there's a good bit in it. I'll play it. It's only a few minutes.
We're only away from our home for a few days a year, so we try to make the most of it like everyone else. And when it comes to exposure, we hear about the sun constantly. I mean, you can't go anywhere without someone trying to sell you some kind of sunscreen with ultra sunblock 80 UV protection or whatever the hell that stuff is, the whole line of yards. But sunscreens, like a lot of products, are part of the personal care product industry, which is a super massive part of our chemical production in the U.S. And it's worth a lot of money to our company, to the tune of $250 billion a year.
I'll just flick to the bit and then everyone will.
And it also said of every ecosystem, a lot of what's back moisture. Well, today. In their current form, cosmetics quite simply contain chemicals that are either known to be toxic, have some evidence to be toxic, or have not been tested, and we don't know if they're toxic. That's three really big problems right there. Cosmetics are virtually unregulated in the United States. It's legal for companies
Okay, so I think it's good that I especially like the bit about Homer because I'm a Simpsons lover.
Yeah.
But right at the end there's two things that she says that's really pertinent. One is about fragrance, that they can basically hide anything they want within the word fragrance because it then becomes intellectual property. So they don't have to list it because that's their IP. The other thing is contaminants. They don't know what a contaminant is. So a contaminant is where two ingredients in a formula will mix together to cause something else which isn't listed on the ingredients. Now, as we know, if anyone's not particularly well versed in chemistry, when you put a bunch of chemicals together, they create new chemicals. And all too often, the bringing of these things together, and sodium lauryl sulfate, which is in a lot of products, is a prime target for this, mixes with other things and causes contaminants which then don't need to be listed, which is a new chemical, which is what happens when chemicals are put together, and quite commonly we know they're very bad for us.
Wow.
This is scary, and they just call that a contaminant.
And I've challenged people where I've seen fragrance. I won't buy anything with fragrance on it.
Yeah.
And I've challenged people, and they say, "Oh, but it's an essential oil." I said, "Well, write that on there."
Yeah.
I said, "I'm not buying it because you've written the word fragrance."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fragrance, parfum,
Yeah.
all of them.
Yeah.
You know, you look and you go, you don't know what it is. And this is another scary thing is that people don't think about what they put on the skin. And they say 60% of what we put on our skin is absorbed straight into our bloodstream, which is why it's so dangerous when you're having perfume on your neck, because it goes straight into your thyroid. The thing is, when at least we eat things, we've got two systems that protect us. We've got the digestive system, then we've got the liver. When you put nasties on your skin, which were far, we have like a tube of shower gel. You wouldn't eat a tube of shower gel. Why? Because you know it wouldn't be good for you. But it will probably be
3 seconds or something it takes to get into your bloodstream.
yeah. But you look and go like, realistically, you'd be far safer eating shower gel than you are putting it on your skin. And don't even get me started on what's in your water. That's a whole other talk I'm doing 90 minutes on. And this is the thing. This is an important bit because there's some things we can control, some things that we can't. There's also some things that we don't want to change. And that's absolutely okay. These talks aren't about being a purist and saying you should do this and you should do that. I personally believe that everybody should stop wearing perfume, should use a natural deodorant. The natural deodorant they sell in here is absolutely fantastic. The little orange roller one, brilliant. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Health is 1,000 million choices every single day that are either taking you towards or further away from health. They're either accelerating you towards disease or they're bringing you back towards balance. And it isn't all or nothing. It isn't throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's going if you want to still wear makeup, or you want to still do this, or you want to still wear nail varnish or whatever it be. Some people really love having fake nails. Fine. There's 1,000 other things that you can change. And that's what it is. One thing at a time, being mindful and making those changes. And this is why organic. Okay, so the pharmaceutical industries, the chemical industries do a great job of bagging organic. They say that the organic stuff, non-organic, conventional farming is, this is nutrient rich and all this stuff. They do some really great videos about it. But realistically, all of those chemicals we've already seen are doing us no good. And this is the promise of certified organic. What is in the product will be on the bottle. The contents are monitored by an external body. They're created with sustainable production, chemical, pesticide and insecticide free, 100% naturally derived, from earth to store, cruelty free, GMO free. And really they don't cost any more. There's a lot of symbols